Welcome back, listeners. We're about to take a deep dive today, and I think it's going to be a fascinating one. We're going to be looking at, well, two things, really. The Rosicrucian order, the law of one.
Yeah. Sounds like an interesting mix. Two different paths, maybe, but both, it seems, are leading to, well, spiritual transformation.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got these Rosicrucians, super mysterious. They're all about unlocking this divine knowledge through all these, well, kind of esoteric practices, right?
Right, yeah. And then you have the Law of One, and it's a channeled text, if you're not familiar, and it focuses on energy, this idea of service and, consciousness and how it evolves.
Okay, so two different approaches, but kind of heading towards a similar goal, it seems like. But before we get too deep into it, let's take a step back, break it down a bit. Let's start with the Rosicrucians. Just who were these guys? What were they all about?
Well, the secrecy surrounding them, it just adds to the whole mystique, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But one of the sources we have is the real history of the Rosicrucians, and it digs into their origins, connects them to some interesting figures like Paracelsus, the alchemist, the physician.
Okay, so we're talking like hidden knowledge, secret societies, ancient traditions. It's like something out of, I don't know, a movie. But what was the point of all this secret knowledge? What were they actually trying to do?
Well, in the end, it was about spiritual enlightenment, achieving perfection, that kind of union with the divine.
So it's more than just collecting knowledge. It's about using it to transform yourself, right?
Right, yeah. They thought you could unlock your potential, your hidden potential, by studying and practicing these, well, esoteric arts.
Okay, that's fascinating. Were there any, I don't know, specific practices or beliefs that really defined their path? Like, what did they actually do?
Well, there's a book called The Rosicrucian Mysteries by Max Heindel, and he talks about this magical language and writing they used. It's how they recorded their findings. And then there's, well, the philosopher's stone, the legendary thing.
Oh, wow. Their own language. They were serious about this, huh? And the Philosopher's Stone, yeah, that's like ultimate transformation. Not just lead into gold, but like inner transformation too, right?
Yeah, exactly. The key to spiritual perfection, they thought.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But how does all this connect to the law of one? How does that fit into the picture?
That's where things get really interesting, I think, because, both the Rosicrucians and the Law of One, they both put a lot of emphasis on this idea of inner alchemy.
Inner alchemy.
Yeah, basically consciously transforming yourself to reach a higher state of being.
Okay, I like the sound of that. But what does that actually mean? What does inner alchemy really involve? And how does it lead to, this spiritual transformation?
At its core, it's about refining your energies, transmuting them, really. It's about reaching a higher level of consciousness. The Law of One, it talks about our energy centers. It's similar to like chakras, if you're familiar with that from, Eastern traditions. And the idea is that balancing these centers is super important for spiritual growth.
So it's like we have this like inner laboratory where we can work on ourselves. We can actually shift our energies on purpose, so to speak, to align with, something bigger.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Okay, so how does this process actually work? Like, what are the, I don't know, the key principles or something?
Well, self-knowledge is huge. Both systems really stress that. The Rosicrucians, they have this concept of the microcosm and the macrocosm. They mirror each other. It means, like, by understanding yourself, you get a deeper understanding of the universe.
Whoa, okay, that's deep.
Yeah, it's a powerful idea, and it kind of reminds me of the Law of One's emphasis on understanding yourself as the creator. Both are guiding us inward to explore the depths of ourselves.
That's really interesting. But this journey of self-discovery, it's not always easy, right? There are challenges, I'm sure. Like, how do these systems help us with the, I don't know, the tough parts of inner alchemy?
Right, yeah. Well, one key idea is mastering your desires. The Rosicrucians, they talk about this thing called the desire body, this energetic form that's shaped by your desires and emotion.
Okay.
And the Law of One, it says it's super important to choose your desires consciously, make them align with your spiritual goals.
So not about suppressing desires, but more like refining them, channeling them towards something bigger.
Yeah, exactly. It's about that refinement process. That's where the real transformation happened. A lot of alchemical texts, they describe it as purification, separating the gold from the dross, figuring out which desires are really aligned with your higher self and which ones are holding you back.
That's a really powerful image. So we're like alchemists, but in our own being, purifying and refining our desires to create something truly, valuable.
Precisely. But it takes patience, persistence. And a willingness to be honest with yourself. It's not a quick fix. It's a journey, a continuous journey of, well, growth and transformation.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but I have to ask, how does all this inner alchemy translate into real life? How do we know if we're actually making progress?
That's a good question, yeah. It's not like, you get a grade or something for how well you're doing at inner alchemy.
Right.
It's not about external validation, it's all internal, happening gradually, subtly, a lot of the time. But both the Rosicrucians and the Law of One, they offer some clues, some things to look for to see how you're progressing.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of signs should we be looking for? How do we know we're, on the right track?
Well, one of the big ones is a change in your consciousness. You become more aware of your connection to everything, to all things. The Law of One talks about expanding your love and compassion, not just for the people close to you, but for all beings.
So less about me and more about like the we, more of a like universal perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And usually with that shift in consciousness, you also feel more, peace, joy, purpose in life. You start to see the world differently. It's not so much about personal gain, it's more about, well, the well-being of everyone, the collective.
That's pretty amazing. It's like you're letting go of the ego a little bit and tapping into something much deeper, more compassionate.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And usually that leads to better relationships too with yourself and others. More patience, more forgiveness, more understanding all around.
That's definitely a good sign, for sure. But what about the tough stuff, the shadows we talked about earlier? How do you know if you're facing those in a way that actually helps you grow spiritually?
One sign is, you're willing to look at those fears, those limiting beliefs you have head on. You don't avoid them, you don't try to bear them. The Rosicrucians believed if you shine a light on your shadows, you can actually transform them. They become sources of strength and wisdom.
So not pretending they don't exist, but like accepting them, integrating them, like they're part of you, part of the whole.
Exactly. And the Law of One, it emphasizes forgiveness. Forgiving yourself and others, that's how you release that negative energy and move on, move forward.
Makes sense. If you hold on to anger, to resentment, it keeps you stuck, right? You can't evolve.
Right. And it's important to remember inner alchemy, it's not about reaching some perfect state. It's a journey, it's always ongoing, there are going to be ups and downs. It's about learning from your mistakes, accepting that you're not perfect, and still striving to be better, to be more aligned with your higher self.
That's good to hear. It takes the prayer off a bit. It's not about being perfectly spiritual all the time. It's about the journey. But how do you stay on the path? Are there like specific things you can do to help you with all this alchemy?
Yeah, definitely. Both the Rosicrucians and the Law of One, they talk about daily practices, things that support your growth. For the Rosicrucians, it might be meditation, visualization, studying those esoteric texts we talked about.
So it's about having a routine, a daily routine that feeds your soul, so to speak, that keeps you connected to, I don't know, to your spiritual goals.
Yeah, exactly. And the Law of One, it really emphasizes service to others. That's like a powerful catalyst for spiritual evolution. It's about taking that love, that compassion, and extending it outward, using your gifts, whatever they are, to make a positive impact on the world.
That's beautiful. It's like spiritual growth isn't just about you. It's about helping others. It's about the whole.
Yeah, exactly. It can be big things like devoting your life to a cause, or it can be small acts of kindness. It's about acting from your heart, letting your love flow out and touch other people's lives.
That's really inspiring. It's like we're all being called to, I don't know, to step up, to be the best version of ourselves, not just for us, but for everyone, for the planet even.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. And that brings us back to, well, the heart of inner alchemy. Transforming lead into gold, taking the raw materials of your life, the experiences, the challenges, the relationships, and making them into something beautiful, something meaningful, something that aligns with your highest purpose.
So it's not about waiting for something to happen to you. It's about you making it happen. Every moment, every choice, it all matters.
That's it, yeah. And this whole process of inner alchemy, it's not just for spiritual gurus or whatever. It's for everyone. It doesn't matter what you believe, where you come from. It's a universal journey. Anyone can do it.
This conversation has been, wow, really insightful, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore, to unpack.
I agree. One thing we haven't touched on yet is symbolism. Both the Rosicrucians and the Law of One, they use symbols a lot in their teachings.
Oh, symbols. That's where things get really interesting, but also like kind of tricky, right? It's like a secret code you have to crack to understand the deeper meaning.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a treasure hunt for hidden meaning. And luckily, we have some amazing resources that can help us decode those symbols, help us understand how they fit into this whole alchemical journey.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Let's dive into that symbolic world and see what we can find. Okay, let's crack the code. What kind of symbols are we talking about here? What should we be paying attention to? And what do they tell us about this, spiritual transformation?
Well, I mean, we got to start with the Rose Cross, right? It's the emblem of the whole Rosicrucian order. Such a powerful image full of contradictions, but they somehow all work together.
Yeah, the rose cross, I've always been fascinated by it. You've got the rose, which is like beauty, love, the soul blossoming. But then you have the cross, which is usually about, suffering, sacrifice. It's kind of strange how those two things come together.
Right, but that's what makes it so cool. You have the rose, the spiritual blossoming right at the heart of the cross, which represents the material world. It perfectly captures that Rosicrucian idea that you need both the spiritual and the earthly to be whole.
Hmm. So it's a reminder that spiritual growth doesn't happen in isolation, I guess. It's about embracing like all of life, the good and the bad.
Yeah, exactly. And remember that microcosm, macrocosm thing we talked about, the rose cross, it symbolizes that too. The rose, your individual soul, is at the center of the cross, the universe. It's like you and everyone else is a little universe inside the big universe.
Whoa, that's pretty mind-blowing. It really shows how everything is connected, which is a big part of the law of one too, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of the law of one, let's talk about another symbol that pops up in both systems, the serpent.
The serpent, really, isn't that usually a bad thing? Like temptation, negativity?
Yeah, that's what most people think of, the serpents in the Garden of Eden, all that.
Yeah, exactly.
But in esoteric traditions, like with the Rosicrucians and in the Law of One, the serpent has a much deeper meaning. It's not so simple.
Okay, I'm curious. What does it symbolize then?
It represents wisdom, transformation, and this energy called the Kundalini. It's like a powerful life force that's, well, kind of sleeps at the base of your spine,
Oh, Kundalini energy. I've heard of that. It's like a serpent that rises up your spine, right?
activating all your energy centers as it goes.
Exactly. It's a symbol of spiritual evolution, your consciousness unfolding, but it's not always an easy process, waking up that energy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Transforming, changing, it's got to be tough sometimes, like shedding old habits, facing your fears, embracing new ways of being. That could be painful even.
For sure. And that's where that image of the serpent shedding its skin comes in. It represents those cycles, life, death, rebirth, that constant transformation we go through on the path to, well, spiritual growth. It's a reminder that we're always shedding old layers, becoming a newer, better version of ourselves. That's actually a really beautiful way to look at it. Like we're always becoming, always changing.
Exactly. That's the heart of alchemy, right? Shedding the old, embracing the new. Both the Rosicrucians and the Law of One, they talk about how spiritual growth is like a series of deaths and rebirths. You're constantly refining yourself.
Yeah, like you're being forged in fire. Each time you come out stronger, brighter. Okay, one more symbol, hopefully a bit less intense than the serpent. What about the triangle? How does that fit in with all this alchemy stuff?
Ah, the triangle. It's a big one. Shows up in a lot of spiritual traditions. What do you think of when you see it?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the Christian Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But I'm guessing the Rosicrucians and the Law of One have their own take on it.
You got it. For the Rosicrucians, the triangle usually represents those three basic principles of creation: spirit, mind, matter. It's how those three forces interact that creates everything, including us.
So we're not just physical beings, right? We're spiritual, mental, all those energies combined.
Exactly. And they got to be in balance, the Rosicrucians believed, for you to grow spiritually. What about the Law of One? What's their take on the triangle?
Tell me, Unomi.
Well, they also talk about a trinity, but they call it the creator, the creation, and the purpose of creation. You can imagine it like a big cosmic triangle. The creator at the top, the creation at the bottom, and the purpose connecting them.
I like that. That's a really cool visual. It really shows how everything is connected, that we're all part of this giant cosmic plan.
Yeah, exactly. We come from the creator, and we all have a purpose, a reason for being.
So how does understanding all this triangle symbolism help us with our own spiritual journey?
It reminds us that balance is key. You got to integrate your spiritual, mental, and physical sides, just like the creator, creation, and purpose are all intertwined.
So we're trying to embody that divine trinity, in a way, bring all parts of ourselves into alignment.
Beautifully put. And that immigration, that's the heart of inner alchemy, right? Bringing together all the piece of the light and the shadow, the spiritual and the material, to become whole, to be in harmony.
Wow, this deep dive into symbolism has been incredible. It's like
Yeah.
these symbols, they're not just random images. They're like keys to understanding the universe and ourselves.
I'm glad you're getting so much out of it. Remember, symbols are like seeds. They plant these powerful ideas in your mind, inspire you to look deeper, to discover more truths about yourself and the world.
It really is like a treasure hunt, but for meaning. I definitely want to keep exploring this, all these symbols and the Rosicrucian and Law of One T things. But as we wrap things up, what are the big takeaways you'd want to leave our listeners with? What's the core of what we've been talking about today?
Well, I think the main thing is both the Rosicrucians and the Law of One, they're all about inner transformation. They're telling us, hey, you have the power to change, to evolve your consciousness, to refine your energy, to align yourself with something bigger.
It's pretty empowering, right? You're not just waiting for something to happen, you're making it happen.
Exactly. And it's not a solo journey either. We're all in this together. We can learn from each other, support each other.
This whole deep dive has been a real journey, and I hope our listeners feel the same. I feel inspired. I feel like I can do anything. Ready to keep exploring this whole inner alchemy thing.
That's fantastic. And remember, it's a lifelong journey, this self-discovery, this spiritual growth. There's always more to learn, more to experience, more to uncover within yourself.
Well, thank you so much for guiding me on this incredible journey. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the alchemy of the soul. We hope you found it insightful and that you'll keep exploring these fascinating ideas. Maybe you'll even discover your own path to transformation. Until next time.